Hello and welcome to episode 324 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the writer and director Andy Edwards. We get to sit down and talk with the director in great detail and focus on his brand new film, The Horror Punch. It's out now on all digital platforms and I think you should go and check it out. He's a great guy, it's a short and snappy chat, and you do get a guest appearance from my little dog Florence throughout. You've probably noticed that in the past and I don't normally highlight it, but she is the producer of the podcast and she's asked for basically her to be given credit. So this is my opportunity to recognise that and show, yep, she does make a guest appearance on today's episode. And before I get to the interview with me and Andy, let's quickly touch base and talk about my last episode. It's been a manic week. I promised everyone out there 5 episodes in 1 week. And we started the week with Matt, the singer and songwriter from the amazing band Citizen. This episode's blown up. It's been such a big response, a great band. And what I really love more than anything when I do this podcast is when I see someone come along and say, never heard of this band, listened to your episode, and now I've checked them out and loved them and have been listening to them since. That for me is a dream come true. So thank you so much to everyone that's taken the time to listen, who checked out the podcast. It really means the world. I think all that's left to do today is to get straight to the interview with me and Andy. He's a great writer, a great director, and I think he has a massive future ahead of him. So here's me and Andy talking all things film. So Andy, thank you for taking the time to join me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
No worries.
What I do with all guests, Andy, is take it right back to the very start. I'm always very interested in maybe the first film you saw as a kid that made you fall in love with cinema.
That's quite an easy one for me and probably quite a repeated answer for people of my age, which is Star Wars.
Yeah.
I saw it was Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, playing a double bill. I'm guessing I was like 5.
Wow.
So it would have been, I think it was maybe a year after Empire came out, they released them in as a sort of double bill at the cinema, and that was the first thing I saw, and obviously blew my tiny little mind, and I wanted to go and get all the figures and everything. But then also from that, I became fascinated with how it was all put together. So, for Christmas, I'd ask for like the making of books and all the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And this was before you could get Blu-ray extras and all of these things. So you had to get a book to find out how they built everything. And so it kind of started from there, really.
It doesn't get much bigger, does it, than the foundations of Star Wars, especially, in the 70s and 80s. And I think to have those behind the scenes, it really makes you appreciate how much practical effects were used in the right way. And George Lucas, for me, was a genius in the way he created these films with so much detail and so much time spent on the set design. It still blows my mind now.
Yeah, they still, I've now got a 6-year-old myself, so I'm kind of re-watching them all.
Amazing.
The first 3 hold up effects wise probably better than the next 3 because that CG is really dated now, whereas a lot of the model work hasn't. And to kind of take it on a bit to the next step of where I decided I wanted to make films, because obviously I was fascinated by Star Wars, but growing up in the suburbs of Birmingham, that felt like a long way away and a galaxy far away. But then I hit sort of early teenagerdom and started going to the video shop and renting out things like Evil Dead, or the early Peter Jackson movies. And suddenly you can start to see, oh, hold on, this might be more achievable. I remember seeing on BBC Two, they showed Bad Taste with a documentary about how it was made and how Peter Jackson would save up in the week to buy 3 minutes of film so that him and his mates could kind of do 3 minutes of the film, and he put this thing together. And he built all his own props, and he, made the aliens in his kitchen and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, now this feels more like something, a world that I could get into. So that was sort of the next step of the evolution. Um, Star Wars made me want to make movies, but it felt too far away. Whereas, yeah, watching Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson put things together, I was like, oh,
So was that
maybe
the
this is the way
point?
to go.
Was that the point in your kind of life where you thought this could become a reality? It isn't just a dream to one day make films. You could see how you can make fake blood and hire a camera yourself and go somewhere and make a horror with
Yeah.
a very small budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Those kind of things that are inspirational, really, because you can see the joins, and it doesn't matter when you're watching it as a fan, you're loving it still. But then, yeah, afterwards you can go back and watch it and figure it out. And you can see that these things are just puppets, and there's blood they cooked up in the kitchen, and they put the camera on a skateboard and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's quite inspiring, really, and it makes you think, oh, maybe actually. Maybe some kid from Birmingham could do that, actually.
Did you go down the route of studying at school and then college to want to be a filmmaker, or was it a different avenue for you? How did it actually become a reality?
It was kind of in a roundabout way. So I knew I wanted to do it. And I did film studies at university. So
Yeah,
not film school, but film studies. Um, which was very sort of academic and not very practical course. It was very interesting, but didn't really teach much practical skills. But then out of university, long story short, but I did a million other jobs, um, you know, that we all have to, because we need money. Um, and I had no connections to the industry or anything, so I came out and I worked in an off license. I worked in a call center, um, and then I moved to London and worked in radio for quite a while, actually. And that kind of scratched a creative itch for a good few years. So I had a good time working in radio, and then that finished. Um, and I was early 30s, and I was like, oh God, remember when I used to want to make films? Um, let's get that on started again. And I made a series of short movies, series of short zombie movies called House Party of the Dead. Um, and the first one we shot in my flat, um, Catch Up for Blood, that kind of
amazing.
thing. And we progressed to House Party of the Dead 6, which was, it's a good 10, 15 minutes long, actually maybe 20 minutes long. We had like 50 zombie extras. It was shot by a friend of mine called Evan Bolter, who's just shot The Last of Us for HBO.
Wow.
It was one of his first gigs. And then that led to Ibiza Undead, which was my first feature.
Did you have a supportive background and family? Were they, wanting you to pursue a career here, knowing that it's such a hard world and business to make a name for yourself for?
I mean, they've been supportive. I mean, I've got no, connections, family connections or anything to the film industry.
No.
Uh, and I genuinely think if they knew how hard it was, they might have discouraged me more. Because it is hard, there's a lot of luck involved. So yes, I'd say supportive, but you know, they knew nothing about the industry and only kind of know from me working in it how it all works, really.
You were talking then about Ibiza Undead. Do you feel this was the step, and this is sort of, I think, nearly 7 years ago, 8 years ago now? Was that the moment that the momentum felt like it had changed a bit and you were being taken more seriously, or you were able to then get involved in bigger productions or a bigger budget for the films moving forward?
Um, I mean, it's got me the conversations.
Yeah,
I mean, that was obviously the hope. And so I think that's the dream that, you kind of get your first feature under the belt. Because as a filmmaker, you're always, if you've just done shorts, for example, everyone's always like, oh, well, you haven't done a feature. They're not going to take you seriously. So you always think that once I've got my first feature, then the world is going to magically change and everybody's going to take you seriously. But the sad fact is that I think it's something like 80% of directors never make a second movie.
That's sad.
Um, so your first feature isn't a passport to success, unfortunately. You kind of almost have to start again to do number two and then number three. So, if it's a runaway hit, you do see these filmmakers who make one breakout hit and then suddenly Hollywood comes calling and offers them huge amounts of money. But that's, a rarity. You've still got to hustle to get your second one. You can just have more conversations, I think, when you're hustling for your second or your third, because people do take you more seriously. But wouldn't say it's any easier.
And if we fast forward, obviously, to your most recent film, which we're promoting at the moment, Punch, how did this project come about, and was it quite a challenge to get it greenlit, or was it quite a success and quite a fast-moving pace film for you?
Well, it was actually very easy to get this one greenlit because I produced it by my own
Yeah,
production company. So I greenlit it myself. So that's one, if filmmakers out there are having trouble getting their movie greenlit,
just
just
make your own
greenlight it
production
yourself.
company. Yeah,
Make your own. Um, but yes, I'm a writer director, had no intention really of becoming a producer, but it was in the pandemic. Um, all my projects obviously fell apart as they did for everybody. Um, Nothing was going on. So I decided to set up my own production company because I didn't want to spend a year, 2 years, however long it was all going to last, doing nothing. So I set up my own production company and produced a film called Graphic Desires.
yeah.
A super low budget, small cast, achievable under COVID rules at the time. Um, I didn't want to do nothing, but it was also a way of kind of teaching myself the route into production, um, learning how the sausage is made from start to finish. So not just the writing and the directing, but the fundraising at the start, all the way through to the sales and distribution at the end. Um, so that was the first one. Um, and then, I was coming up with more and more ideas. And some ideas I come up with, some scripts I come up with, they're bigger budget. We need I need a bigger production company to kind of bring that to life. But with Punch, I was like, actually, this could be doable on a low budget. Um, it's a good idea. No one's done it before. Rather than spending 3 years trying to pitch it out to production companies to get it made, why not just run it through my company and let's make that film number two.
Does that feel like a real nice personal journey that you can greenlit your own films? You haven't got to wait on meeting after meeting, speaking to this person, that person. You can literally get that answer overnight. Okay, you might not have the funds of a dream budget, but at least you can have full control.
Yeah, 100%. And it's horses for courses. Like I said, I've got other projects which, they're going to need more money. They're going to need, a bigger infrastructure behind. But if I've got a project that I feel could be done on a budget that I can find, then yeah, it makes it so much easier. And it's just about keeping working really.
Yeah,
Um, because that those bigger things can take 2, 3, 4 years to materialize, and then they might fall apart. The bigger the budget, the longer it's going to take to put together. So whilst I'm waiting for those to happen, if I can be making my own stuff in the meantime, then that's brilliant for me. I just want to be working. Um, and with my production company, we've just produced another movie, which I didn't write or direct. So, as well as kind of greenlighting my own thing, it's really nice to be able to greenlight something for somebody else.
that's brilliant.
Um, so this film, it's by a first-time director, done a bunch of shorts, but this is his first feature. So it's really nice to be able to say yes to somebody really that we're going to make a film.
And with Punch, I've been lucky enough to see an advanced screener, and it left me wanting more. And I did think to myself, is there the possibility of a franchise? Do you think there might be more from this story in the near future, or is it at the moment just something you've parked as a one-off standalone film?
Oh, 100%. It was always in my mind to do a sequel.
Yeah.
I want to do Punch 2, Punch 3, Punch 4, Punch 5. Because that was one of the reasons I created the character. Was because I wanted a slasher killer that was, turning that could be turned into a franchise. Because we don't have any really in the UK. We don't have our own Freddy, Jason,
No, it's
whoever.
true actually, isn't it? There's nothing in the
Um,
UK that's kind of took off to give us more than one.
Yeah, and we generally do sequels very much at all in this country. Even, you
No.
think horror hits that have done well. I mean, the closest I can think of is they're obviously thinking of doing a third one in the 28 Days Later
Yeah, but
series.
that's
I
took,
mean, even
20
then,
years.
that's
Yeah.
like 20 years between number one and number three. So, um, yeah, that was my intention. So the fact that you're thinking, oh, I'd like to see more from this character in this world is brilliant, really. And if we can get everybody thinking that, then yeah, I want to do number two, number three, number four, and not necessarily me do them. Get other filmmakers in, other writers, turn it into a proper franchise.
And you just mentioned then, obviously, your production company are going to greenlit another film, but it's not you writing, it's not you directing. It gives an opportunity to another filmmaker to tell their story. What's next for you in the way of writing or directing? Have you already got work lined up? Is there an idea that you're thinking of, or pen
We've
on
got
paper?
the sorry, yeah, we've got the probably the fourth film that Paranoid Android are producing. And I am writing and directing that one, and that one's hopefully going to shoot in March. Top secret at the moment. We're just casting. Um, but as soon as it's out, I will let everybody know. As soon as we're in
Exciting.
production. Um, it's always risky, because anything can happen. I always, I don't never want to jinx a project
No, of
by going,
course
oh, we're
not.
doing this, we're doing this. Um, but yes, fingers crossed, and I can only cross them on one hand at the moment because this one's
Yeah,
broken. Um,
you're in the
that
wars.
that Yes, we will be shooting a next film in March.
What I do on the podcast, and it's my final question for you today, obviously I'm aware of the time, is every guest that's been on, I've done over 300 episodes now with writers, directors, actors, musicians. What I like to do to try and make the podcast as personal as I can is ask the guest to pick a song they love to be played at the end of our today's interview. So as the interview plays out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Amazon, the song that's played is chosen by the guest. I don't give you long to think about it, but if there's a song that means a lot to you or a piece of music that came to your heart and your soul as I ask the question, I'd love to know what it is and what makes that song so special to you.
Oh God,
Talk about putting you on the spot, eh?
this is definitely putting me on the spot, but there is a piece of music, and I will send it to you.
Okay.
Because not many people which will have heard this. And it's the title track that we used for Punch.
Oh, lovely.
It's an old folk song. I say it's an old folk song. It's not that old at all, because the guy who wrote it, a guy called John Connolly, is still alive. Because I was looking for an opening track to kind of play over the opening credits, and looking at, if obviously Mr. Punch has got a rich history, so I was looking for songs, and I came across this folk song called Punch and Judy Man, and it's been covered by lots of artists, but it's written by a guy called John Connolly. And I tracked him down, and he lives up north, and messaged him and said, I want to use this song, but want to get a cover version of it, because I wanted a female vocalist on it.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, cool, go for it. I'd given him a little bit of money for the rights. And so we recorded a brand new cover version of this song,
Oh, that's
to
lovely.
play over the credits, which I'll send to you after this interview's done. I'll write that down.
Andy, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'm really grateful for your time. Good luck, and I really hope it won't be long until we see the announcement of Punch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as many as we can get.
Excellent. We want him in space by number 10.
Definitely. If it's not in space by 10, you've done something wrong.
Exactly.
But good luck with everything, and I'm sure our paths will cross at Fright Fest or a
Excellent.
film event in the future. And please keep in contact, and as soon as the
Yes.
episode's ready, I'll tag you in and share everywhere.
Excellent. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Thanks for your time and good luck with the rest of the press.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there's my interview with me and Andy. What a lovely guy. Great director, great writer, such a great vision. And anyone that wants to come on the podcast and talk Star Wars is always welcome. I want to say a massive thanks to Andy for coming on the podcast. And as you heard, we talked all about his brand new film, Punch. This film is out now digitally, so go and check it out and then let me know on any of my social media channels what you thought. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it. I say this on every episode because it's crucial to the growth of Mark and me. If you're listening and you have a Twitter account, why not hit the retweet button? If you're on Facebook, hit the share button, and on Instagram, just hit the little heart or put it as part of your stories. I see more and more people do it each and every week, and it means this podcast gets bigger and grows naturally, and that's all I can ask for. Also, if you've really enjoyed today's episode and want to go that little bit extra, I do have a Patreon account. That's hooked up if you go on markandme.com. There's a simple link, and to say thank you for giving me maybe £1 or £2 a month, you'll receive a welcome pack. That includes a really nice limited edition pin badge, some stickers. You also get an exclusive newsletter each and every month, and an episode which is only available to people on Patreon, and that's called The Lost Tapes. This is my way of saying thank you for supporting me, and allows me to go out there and do the podcast for you all over the UK, and without that I can't do the podcast. I understand times are tight, I understand money's hard, but it's literally £2 a month, and that makes a huge difference to Mark and me. Also, just before I go, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of the podcast, Richer Sounds. If you're in the market for a new home cinema, TV, Sonos system, surround sound, vinyl deck, whatever you're looking for, then hit up richersounds.com. You will not regret it. And as you know, this week is going to be a busy week, and you're going to be receiving another episode in less than 48 hours. So stay tuned for that. And until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Down the lanes of foggy chimneys, through the little seaside town, strides the east wind like a dragon, strewing leaves of ragged brown. Winter's planting icicles along the barren shore, and the Punch and Judy man is gone forever. Mr. Punch and Judy man, time flows like the yellow sun. Bring me back the childhood land of summers long ago. Hear the ghosts of penny arcades jingle jangle on the pier. Gone the sound of laughing children, fading with the dying year. Songs of sunshine leave the world to winter's weary ways, and the Punch and Judy man is gone forever. Mr. Punch and Judy man, time flows like the yellow sand. Bring me back the childhood land of summers long ago.